What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas here, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel. And I had to take two on this one. Unfortunately, I didn't want to have to take two on this one, but I was upstairs, and my laptop just died out of nowhere. I had it plugged in and didn't even let me know that the battery was low, and it just died. So I'm downstairs in my guest room down here, and I'm gonna just do it live. I know I got my window here, so I'm probably gonna just turn here, sitting on my guest room bed, doing it on here. But I thought, at least put it out there and see what's going on with everybody. So people know that I've shifted the show. I've shifted it. I've revamped it. I'm looking to create it visually better than ever before, make it better. And obviously, I'm in the process of doing that with this YouTube channel, making this YouTube channel bigger and better, getting as many subscribers as possible, people that tune into me on Facebook, many fans and listeners, Bills fans and MMA fans, tune in on here all the time. They let me tune on there all the time. I have to shift them to here because this is where it's going to be. This is how it's going to be from here on out. I've kind of shifted the show from making it visual or from audio to visual. That's what I've wanted to do for a while. I have mics and stuff set up so I can have guests on here from here on out. So it's going to be very, very fun. Obviously, within the next couple weeks. Obviously, with draft time coming, some of my friends will be on. Some writers will be on. I'm actually going to be joining another podcast outside of my fantasy podcast. It's called The Jets Factor. I'm going to be representing the Buffalo Bills as a Bills fan on that podcast. I'm going to be debating some New York Jets journalists and diehard podcast people that are Jets podcast people. I'm a Bills podcast guy with how I talk about the Bills and stuff on occasion. And this segment brings me, this episode on YouTube brings me another topic about the Bills to talk about, and that is the draft visits. We are talking about the draft, and that's really all that there is to talk about right now in terms of the Buffalo Bills and everything like that. I definitely have a lot to say in terms of the draft. I've always got a lot to say. That's one thing that people will always say about me. There's always something coming out of my mouth, about the Bills. There's always a take somewhere. So want to talk about Buffalo Bills and some draft talk. And one thing that has really, really caught my attention, and I feel like it's, I'm doing this, it's deja vu because I just did this, but the video didn't upload, is some of the visits. And the visits are a huge, to me, a huge outlier in what a team actually ends up doing. That Trey White visited with the Buffalo Bills last year. And there's other players that have visited with the Bills within the last few years, too many to count, to be quite honest with you, that the Bills ended up drafting. Some of them they take to dinner. They get to know about them and their families. They get to know certain things about them that they wouldn't have learned had they not gone on this quote unquote visit or meeting with them. The one name that really jumps out at me is not a quarterback. The one name that really jumps out at me is defensive back Dante Jackson of LSU. And the reason why that jumps out at me is due to the fact that, as I mentioned, they just drafted last year an LSU defensive back in Trey White. So how much say does Trey White actually have in what they do? I mean, I'm not saying that Trey White is, an assistant GM in there, but I am saying that I do think that there is a path that this team has already somewhat started with Trey White setting the table with Trey White first, knowing what he brings to the table as a first-round draft pick, what he brought to the table to the team this past season. It's a leadership quality, and that's what I'm saying, a leadership quality that Trey White went above and beyond, telling the Bills that, hey, I like this kid. He's a teammate of mine, former teammate of mine. He was a fantastic player, hardworking player. He fits in with what we are trying to create as a team in terms of bringing in hardworking players that buy into what Sean McDermott does schematically, and what Sean McDermott does, verbally, and the way he teaches the players. I think that is something that goes above and beyond what most fans look at. Most fans and most football fans in general, and I'm a victim of it too. Sometimes they look at bringing in the quote unquote best players, and the best players is not what wins. Building the best team, building a team that people can look at and say, these are our guys, this fits our system, this fits our city, this fits our team. And that's what this move, if they were to bring in a Dante Jackson, would do. And it's a move that would not surprise me at all, due to the fact that they scheduled to visit Trey White last year. They visited with Trey White last year, and they got him. They brought him in. Dante Jackson, bringing him in would be like a continuation of what Trey White had at LSU, and that excites me a lot. Building the defense is something that excites me a lot. Having two guys that played with each other in college, playing with each other in the pros, two guys that aren't slouches. And I'm not saying that, Trey White has proven to be a Hall of Famer just yet. He's only played 1 year, but he had a pretty damn good rookie season, was a Pro Bowl snub in my opinion. And Dante Jackson is a guy that Trey White went to bat for and said, this guy would help me. He would help the team. He would create an extension of the culture that they are trying to create and the culture that they are trying to build at One Bills Drive. So other visits that I've tuned into, other visits that I have seen that are very interesting to me. Baker Mayfield, who's a quarterback, obviously. Josh Rosen, who's a quarterback, obviously. Mason Rudolph, who's a quarterback, obviously. Raquan Smith, linebacker. Leighton Vander Esch, the defensive end / linebacker. Fred Warner out of BYU, who I really started just watching film on. And Rashad Penny, who is LaShawn McCoy-esque, LaShawn McCoy light, as I'd like to call him. Very, very similar to what LaShawn McCoy brings to the table. So out of those 8 players, and if I'm focusing on those 8 players, you have 4 of the 8 are on offense, 3 of the 8 are quarterbacks, 3 of the 8 are linebackers, 1 of the 8 are running backs, 1 of the 8 are defensive backs, obviously. And that would be referring to, obviously, Dante Jackson. That means to me that McBean is looking at all areas. McBean meaning Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. They're looking at all areas of the team to improve the team rather than trading the farm to get one player. And fans are looking to trade the farm for one player. I'm actually going to bring this up to the stairs. Actually, yeah, back upstairs, because this charge is pretty quick. So bear with me here as I mosey through my house. Let's see here. So I'm going to just mosey on through here. All right. All right. Back to where we started, where we belong, where it needs to be. So, chilling here. All right. Back where we need to be. Zeroing in on one position, like most experts believe they are, I think that is a huge mistake. And trading up for a quarterback from 2 to 12, we saw what the Jets gave up to do that. It was a lot of picks that will prohibit the Jets from really building around whoever it is they take 3rd overall. They moved up from 6 to 3 when they didn't necessarily have to. They could have stayed at 6 and took the same player that they could have got the same guy. They didn't know what teams picking 4, Cleveland, and 5 would be picking. They didn't know that. So maybe they just wanted to give themselves a better chance. I understand all that, but they traded a lot of picks to just give themselves a better chance without knowing that, with knowing that they could have got that guy anyway. That's very, very curious to me. I'm very curious as to why they did that. When I look at previous players, guys like Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, they needed talent around them in order to be better. And that's what this quarterback is going to need if the Jets do, in fact, get that quarterback. They could end up getting Saquon Barkley. Who knows? When I look at Dante Jackson, I look at a talented player, a guy that ran a 4.32 40, played alongside Trey White, played well at LSU, DBU, a late first, early second. OSU defensive back Denzel Ward also interviewed with the Bills, visiting with the Bills. I see him as a top 10, top 15 player, as low as a top 20 player. Dorian O'Daniel, a special teams ace. Frank Ragnow, an Arkansas center, one of the best centers in the draft in recent memory, in my opinion. They got a hole there with Eric Wood, obviously going into retirement. Tight end Dallas Goedert is a guy that I think is definitely on everybody's list as far as like a first or second round pick. I haven't seen a tight end like this rated this high in most mock drafts in quite some time. Wide receiver out of UB, Kamathi Holsey, 51 catches, 737 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Obviously seen as a late round guy. FIU quarterback Alex McGough, day 3 guy, but a guy that is seen with raw talent, a project player that realistically a lot of these teams have taken project quarterbacks and they've actually ended up panning out. Guys like middle rounds. I mean, like Russell Wilson and guys like Dak Prescott, obviously out of FIU, not playing for Stanford or USC or anything like that, but obviously a guy that has some raw talent. Western Carolina defensive back Keon Crossan, Oklahoma wide receiver James Washington, Kyle Williams 2.0, Stanford defensive tackle Harrison Phillips. That's what I have him slotted as, is the next Kyle Williams. I think that is a fitting comparison. High motor guy, not the most athletic, but a guy that just works hard and definitely likes to get to the quarterback or the running back. Washington quarterback Luke Falk, Michigan linebacker Mike McCray, who did some big things for the Wolverines. North Carolina State running back, wide receiver Jalen Samuels, who was seen as a Swiss Army knife in college, played running back, played receiver, played tight end in the scouting combine. That's a dude that I like. I like guys that can play different positions. I like guys that can do different things, the Bo Jacksons of the world. I'm not saying that he's Bo Jackson, but I like stories like that. Brandon Parker, a small school tackle, guy that I really like. Ryan Izzo out of FSU, Florida State University tight end. Arizona State University running back Kalen Ballage. Pitt offensive lineman Jared Jones-Smith. Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson they've also visited with. Samuel says the last few times the Bills traded draft high, they got great quarterbacks, right? Yeah. We already went through that. The year they drafted and traded up to take J.P. Lossman, they could have picked the quarterback in 2005 at their pick, which would have been 20th. Could have took Aaron Rodgers. We'll just leave it at that. UTEP guard Will Hernandez, UCLA offensive tackle Colton Miller, Washington wide receiver Dante Pettis, who they took to dinner. Running back out of LSU, Legaris Guice. I always mispronounce his name, but I think I got it finally. Josh Allen, quarterback, obviously a top name prospect in this draft, seen as a polarizing prospect. Most think he's raw. Most think he's not willing, ready, and able to be a franchise guy, but I see a lot of talent in him that needs to be crafted in a couple years' time. Mike White, mid-round quarterback. Obviously, Isaiah Wynn was another one. So just want to hop on here, and the first one I did was in like 25 minutes, and I'm obviously cutting this one a little bit shorter than I wanted to, but basically what my point is that all these fans and all these writers and all these people on these sites have these ideas of what the Bills are already doing, when really they don't know what they're doing. They are hosting and dining and wining and dining players of all different positions. So that doesn't necessarily mean that them trading up for a quarterback is what is going to happen. If that doesn't happen, Bills fans need to be prepared for that. They need to say to themselves, hey, we have to trust the process, and we have to trust Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane to do what's right for this team, as they have, in my opinion, since day one. Allowing themselves to trade for the most unavailable, allowing the Bengals to trade with them for the most unavailable lineman in the National Football League and moving up in the first round to do so. That's a steal. Trading Tyrod Taylor for any pick is a steal, let alone a third-round pick, first overall. And obviously clearing the cap getting rid of some cap space with those moves, getting anything from Marcel Darius, a bag of potato chips would have been a worthy trade for Marcel Darius due to what he gave the team the last few years. So Samuel says, do you think they're smart to stay put and get more players than they are to trade up? I think they are. I think that eventually people will see the light. If this is the route they go in years' time, they will understand why they did it and how it made sense with what the players, with the amount of players that they're going to be able to get, with who they get. We're going to see a huge difference in their team. And I potentially think if they stay and build this team up even more, they could potentially win the AFC East in 2018. You heard that right. I think if the Bills stay put, they could potentially win the AFC East division in 2018. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take on YouTube, coming to you live. Tune in afterwards, live. Subscribe. Make it happen. Take care, everybody.